Hello, this is Rich Saul. I'm chairing a session here called Oncology Innovation at the RESI conference, Bio Europe, has gone virtual due to the COVID-19. Joining me in today's discussion are four esteemed colleagues. Corinne Bino from Beijing, she's a senior director. Sophia Yanadu, who's a partner at Andrea Partners. Thibault Mouton, investment director at Bowman in Innobio. Luke Marangia, who's a managing partner at the TVM Capital Life Sciences. We'll be here for the next 40 minutes or so, discussing a number of important topics in oncology innovation, looking at various kinds of technologies and approaches that investors find most compelling, whether platform technologies or a single asset is preferred for investment partnerships, what kind of criteria do investors use when assessing companies for their portfolio or pipeline? And then we'll go into additional discussions around deal making and what investors look for, maybe for exits or for exits.
I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves very quickly and let them tell you about their funds that they have. Tell the audience about their funds. And I think I'll start with funds or business development. So let me start first with Corinne, actually. Corinne.
Yes. So thanks, Richard, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. And nice that we can do it through this innovative system already. So my name is Corinne Venot. I'm a biologist by training. I've been working 10 years in drug discovery, so I do know very well the early stage of the portfolio, if I can put it that way. 10 years in drug discovery at Aventis, and then I moved to partnering. I was at Sanofi during 8 years, where I was fully focused on in-licensing for the early stage of the portfolio. So I've done a lot of platform deals and early asset in-licensing. And then I moved to Servier, where I was leading the in-licensing for the oncology portfolio. And recently, it's been now almost 14 months, joined BeiGene, who is China biotech, I would say biotech with China roots, fully focused in oncology. 1/3 of our employees, so 3,000 people, are based in China, and 1,000 in the US, and only a small team in Europe. And we are clearly focused in licensing of early asset as well as late stage asset. And we're covering, I would say, territory deal, a lot of China only deals, but also global deals. So I guess we will touch base on the specific afterwards.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Why don't we go next to Luke?
Yes, happy to. So good day, everyone. So my name is Luc Marangère. I'm a managing partner with TVM Capital. We have a presence in both Munich and Montreal. So we do business pan-European and North American side as well. My personal background, I'm a scientist by training. Then I worked with Amgen for 3 years, and then I've been doing venture capital now for 24 years, always in life sciences. Oncology and immunology, in fact, are core to my background. And not surprisingly, over 24 years, I've invested in quite a number of oncology products, oncology companies, worked with various oncology clinical network and what have you. And then joined TVM Capital in 2010. And we built this new investment paradigm, which is the part of our investment strategy that's relevant to this panel, is the one that focuses on early stage asset investing. 40 to 50% of the early stage assets that we look at and we will invest in the portfolio are in oncology, in fact. So that is a very major focus of ours. And what we do is that we've integrated our relationship with Eli Lilly and their drug development subsidiary called Chorus into our investment strategy. And so what we do is we take preclinical compounds and we co-develop them with Chorus in a very, very laser-focused fashion. So it's time efficient, cash efficient. And then if the data are good, then we can sell it to Lilly, or we can sell it to another pharmaceutical, but Lilly has a right of first offer on these compounds. And the whole thing with this strategy is to make the entire development and M&A process as efficient as possible. Okay, and I'd be happy to provide more details on the various elements of that strategy later on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And then let's see, who did I get? Sophia. Yes,
Sure.
you're next. Yeah.
So, Sophia Ioannidou, I'm a partner with Andera Partners in Paris. Andera Partners manages venture capital funds that invest in life sciences, and by this we mean biotech and medtech. We do approximately 2/3 of our investments in biotech and another third in medtech. We invest in Europe as well as in the US. Again, the split is about 2/3, 1/3. Early and late and across therapeutic areas. We are completely agnostic, although admittedly we've done, at least in the last fund, approximately 25% of our investments in oncology, just because that's a very big market and an important one for us. As far as my personal background is concerned, I'm a scientist by background. I studied biochemistry and then a PhD in cell biology, and have been in the venture industry for 10 years now.
All right, thank you very much. And then finally, Thibault.
Hello, everybody, and thanks, RESI, for organizing this panel online. So I'm Thibault Roland. I'm an investment director at BPI France. So BPI France is a French state-owned bank investing in various companies, and we are a team of 10 people dedicated to life science investments. We are managing several funds, mostly the InnoBio2 and InnoBio2 funds. So those are funds of around 150 million euros with pharma companies as investors. Actually, we raised InnoBio2 a little bit more than a year ago, and we have 5 pharma as investors: Sanofi, Boehringer Ingelheim, Ipsen, Servier, and Takeda. We do a lot of investment in France. We also invest all over Europe now with the new fund. We have been doing quite a few investments in oncology, and this ranges all the way from seed stage to classical VC investment to more late stage deals, because indeed we also have a late stage fund investing in a large public company, in large private companies, and also in small public companies. As far as my background is concerned, I'm an engineer and a PhD by training, starting my career as a scientist in a US biotech, and now I've been an investor in life science for 15 years.
Well, thank you very much, first of all. Okay, so when we start with a question here, you know, why is I mean, what are you doing in terms of in-licensing? What is hard on your agenda?
So clearly there are, as I was saying, we can separate it in kind of 4 buckets, but mix everything. So we are interested in all stages of asset, and we are also interested in platform deals together most of the time with some early asset. And we are also highly interested by late stage asset, even commercial asset. And I have to say that with regard to territory, our focus is clearly to be, for the late stage asset, we will be more looking at China deals, so trying to in-license the China rights, because we do have a commercial presence in China. We are there commercially very strong with 1,000 people on the ground, and there since 3 years now, we are commercializing the asset from Celgene through a deal we've made with them, and a recent deal we just made with Amgen, a huge deal in oncology. And we also have our own portfolio of assets with a PD-1, which has just been approved in China. And I have to say that with regard to early deals, we are more interested by global rights, because Beijing has its own portfolio, and this portfolio, of course, we have the rights everywhere. So we just get an approval of our BTK inhibitors and ibrutinib in the US. So we will become commercial as well in the US. So fully makes sense as well for early asset or platform deals to look for global rights. And I don't know whether you want me to stop there or to. Yeah.
No. Is there a particular, let's say, subdiscipline within cancer that attracts you more or less? Novel mechanism of action, unique, action of molecules.
Clear. So we are, I would say, in the targeted therapy field as well as the IO. So as you can see by our first two approved assets, which is a PD-1 and a BTK inhibitor, BTK is clearly in the targeted therapy space, while the PD-1 is in the IO. We are looking at innovative assets, but in innovation, I also include best in class, not only mechanism of action, which have not always proven yet have done their proof of concept. But that's the main focus today, even if we are like a lot of the companies who have high immuno-oncology product. We are also looking at all the new technologies that could leverage the immuno-oncology, efficacy of the PD-1. We have a CTLA-4, so we are also looking at all those modalities that are cancer vaccine, oncolytic viruses, potentially cell therapy, bispecific. All this space, we have not yet, focus on one of them. We are really looking at all of them to try to see which one will be the best to combine with our PD-1 or also our CTLA-4. We will not be able to invest in all of them. So it also depends a lot on where the field is. So if there is proof of concept that are moving in those fields, like, macrophage or Treg, we will quickly move into those ones. So this is something which is still cooking on our side.
Okay, thank you very much. Thibault, when we'll get some insight from you.
So, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of what kind of deals we are looking for, so, our sweet spot is investing in, I would say, preclinical assets that are like between 0 and 18 months from the first in man. We really would focus on innovative targets, and we are pretty much agnostic in terms of what the product would be. As for instance, in our fund, we invested in new NCEs, in monoclonal antibodies. One of our last investments is an ADC development company. And also, a year ago, we invested in a company developing an IV drug that enhances the effect of radiotherapy. So we have, I would say, a very broad scope in terms of mechanism of action. What we are really looking for is our drugs and assets that are, I would say, targeted drugs. In that, I mean that we want to do precision medicine in order to be able to identify very quickly if a drug shows hint of efficacy in a clinical trial or not, because in our opinion, being able to identify very early signs of efficacy is key in development of the drugs, and also it's key for making deals with pharma companies. So we have to have a very robust mechanism of action, ideally with a way to, or diagnostic to identify which patient would be the most would have the highest probability to have a response.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question for the panelists, all of them, and all of them actually. do you scholar? You go into the universities at all in across France in actually Canada to take a look at opportunities? So I'll start with Luke on that.
Yeah, happy to comment on that. So as an opening comment here, I would echo some of the comments made by my co-panelists here that I think there is a gravitational pull now for assets that have the potential to be first in class, if not then best in class, and the B in best has to be in large cap. So I think everyone is now gunning for these oncology products that have the potential to be transformative. So because our model has a 4-year timeline to it, so everything that we do, from day one, tranche one, all right, all the way to generating phase 2 data. So in oncology, it's called Part B data. That has to fit within a 4-year timeline, okay? So by definition, these compounds cannot really be much more than about 12, at most 15 months away from an IND, okay? So, pardon me. So that means that in terms of sourcing assets from academia, that makes it very difficult for us. And so we focus more on bio-partnering events. For example, if we were at Bio Europe Spring this week or next, we would be meeting with companies there, just like we did at JP Morgan, just like we would do at Bio, and so on and so on. The academic environment, oh, sorry, yes?
No, go on.
Okay, the academic environment is a bit trickier because, at least our experience, and I think it's that of others as well, it's the beast of the irreproducibility of data that one has to deal with, right? And so by anyone's account, that number varies, but it's somewhere between 40 to 50%, the usual numbers that you see, where academic data do not reproduce. And so it's difficult for our model to pick out compounds coming out of academia where data that's been generated has not been generated under the usual quality standards. You can do an audit, but it's not the kind of audit that one would do if the data had been done at a major CRO or under a pharma SOP system, so to speak, okay? So for us, yes, there is a lot of good innovation and discoveries in Canadian universities, of course, in universities across North America, and for sure across Europe as well. But the academic landscape is a poor fit with our particular model. So we mine biotech companies, early stage, late stage, platform companies that have multiple assets, and we mine big pharma. And as you guys know, big pharma, one day they're in one area, and the next they're letting go of compounds. And so we've made a living out of teasing out compounds out of Pfizer and Lilly and Merck and Roche and public and private biotech companies, and that's really where we focus. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Actually, I'd like to hear from Corinne on this because she represents another cut. Yeah, Corinne, could you comment on that?
You mean whether we are looking to the academics?
Yes.
Yeah.
From the academics.
Okay, so I have to say that to that end, we are not so much looking at academics. We are more looking at biotech assets, and we are not getting to that early. Also because we have our own research, and there are a lot of things they are covering already. So we are not looking at so early, I would say, and more something which is already put in place with a biotech. So that's mainly our focus. And I fully agree there. We go to the bio partnering meetings in order to meet with those biotech. We also receive a lot of proposal, I would say passively, but that's mainly the place where we are looking for new asset is mostly coming from biotech.
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe I can comment on this, Rich. Yep. Maybe I can comment on this. Since from the investor standpoint, comment on the academic spin-outs. So from our point of view, and I echo a number of points that have been raised so far, but we take, let's say, a mixed approach, or rather a portfolio approach in the investments that we do. And we don't do only academic spin-outs, or we don't only do Series B investments, but we do a mix of everything. And with that prism, I would be slightly more positive than look on the academic spin-outs, which don't necessarily, for us at least, and in our experience, mean that the compound was very early. So we have examples from our latest fund, Discovery 5, where we invested in 5 oncology companies, actually 4 to be precise, and 1 is in preparation. And of these 5, 2 are from academic centers, academic spin-outs. And I can talk about 1 at least because the other one is not yet disclosed. But T-Knife, which is a spin-out from the Max Delbruck Center in Berlin, is one very good example. And this is a company that had developed a platform technology for TCR-based T cells. And in this case, when we invested, the technology was already pretty advanced, and it was close to getting into the clinic for investigator-driven trials. So that is to say that, first of all, I mean, we do academic spin-outs and we do value them, and also that there is a certain disconnect as to the stage of the asset and the fact that it's an academic spin-out. For us, at least, it's not necessarily super early stage.
Well, thank you very much for your voice on that. I just want to ask a general question before we get further deep into this. Why is oncology so hard for investors compared to other therapeutic areas? Is it just a lower bar to go over? Why don't I start with Luke?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Luke, and then we'll go to Corinne.
Okay, sure. Happy to do that. So, well, to begin with, if you look at M&A licensing data over about the last decade, essentially, okay, almost every year, this is a generalization, but I think it's true for almost every year. Where do you see the highest number of deals of all indications done by big pharma and big biotech? Where do you see the biggest premiums paid, and so on? It's in oncology, right? So where do you still have, the last decade has seen big pharma really consolidate and focus on a much smaller number of major indications, right? So oncology is a common denominator still to the vast majority of big pharmaceutical companies, okay? Whereas other indications may have gone by the wayside, for example, right? So driven by where's the attention, where are the deals being done, and where's the big money? It's in oncology almost every year, right? There's big money in other indications as well, don't get me wrong. But oncology remains a front and center of what a lot of big pharmas are looking for, okay? Now,
thank you.
It's not all panacea, okay? Because, for example, what we're starting to see now, there's no doubt that immune oncology is a major area. I mean, that's been like CAR T cells in a more contemporary fashion, immuno-oncology has contributed a transformative tool in oncology, right? But it has limits. So a lot of people, including ourselves, are looking to see what is the next immune-oncology clincher, right? To take these PD-1, PD-L1 patients that express these proteins yet do not respond, right? How do we get from a response rate of 25% to 40 or 50 or 60%? And that would be an incredible economic jump. That'd be material. Okay. So one of the elements as well that we like about oncology is that when you have a product, whether it's for immuno-oncology or a mutated oncogene-driven tumor like a KRAS mutation or others and so on, is that you can also combine these compounds. So the potential market, there's an unmet need. The potential market is quite broad. They're large, and of course that all translates into a higher NPV. Okay. The only cautionary argument that I would make with regards to immuno-oncology, and we have in fact faced that with one of our own investment, is that there is so much activity in IO that there are more clinical trials right now than there are patients, right? So at one point, where are the patients going to come from in order to recruit efficiently and hit your timeline in IO? So that's the one element that makes us hesitate right now to invest more actively in IO, and that's why we're looking at other treatment modalities like oncolytic viruses, even autologous, still kinase inhibitors or mutated specific mutant inhibitors as well. So we're branching a little bit away from IO at this point, but no doubt that oncology as a major focus of interest by the venture capital industry, by the biotech industry, by pharma is definitely here to stay for a while.
Well, thank you, Luke, for that perspective. Yeah, Kareem, go on.
Yeah, I want to comment on first to give my perspective on why oncology is so attractive, and I have the solution for you, Luke, which is the China patient and to do your clinical trials in China, but I will touch base on that second point afterwards. So my view on what oncology is always so hot is I think we should take it from the end. There is a huge change in that the pharma has been facing for now 10 years, let's say. It's the market access, and you do get pricing and reimbursement only when there is a clear medical need and that your compound is really fitting to that clear medical need. So in a sense, oncology is a field where the medical need is still very high. And so there's still a lot of room to bring some additional drugs that can add some value for the patient and then get some correct pricing and get reimbursed, which is not the case when you don't bring a drug which has an added value for the patient. So to me, one of the drivers is clearly the end of the market. So it drives then the interest of everyone. And the only thing is that it's still scientifically a field where it's difficult to win. So there are small winning games, but a lot of science, a lot of unknown still. However, I just want to tackle on the enrollment, and I fully agree with you that this is something that all companies are facing when they're starting a trial. Now, sometimes you even pick your indication based on whether you will have patients that you can enroll. And I have to say that that's where come one of the big strengths of Beijing is that we have a huge clinical development capability in oncology in China. In fact, we are the first. We are the leaders if we look only at oncology for clinical development, with a team of more than 800 people for clinical development, and part of that team also is in California. but at least we operationalize and have 100 people on China ground. And I can tell you the huge advantage of China is that by doing global trials, which is what Beijing is doing and what Beijing is doing with its partners, we are doing global trials, but we are having clinical sites in China. And this allows us to speed the enrollment of our global trials. And those, it's because, I mean, first, you all know that China is 1.4 billion people, but also the centers do concentrate a lot of the patient. So if you are able to bring quality data and have very good team to operationalize, then this is a really winning game, because you can enroll patient in a time fashion that is super impressive, and you are not facing anymore the issue that Luke was mentioning. And we speed up the development of our partner drugs, but also our drugs, the drug we license or the drug we identify on our own. It's just impressive.
Thank you very much. So Thibault, thinking about you're looking at strategy, investment strategy, and the types of due diligence you go through, and then the kind of deal structure that you construct. Can you give us some insights in terms of what that process looks like on your end and what you look for? And then, because I would imagine, with certain characteristics, you would end up with one kind of term sheet versus another kind of term sheet, for example, on these on the assets or platforms that are being developed.
So that's a broad question. So we are a VC, so we pretty much behave as other VC do, at least as European VC, because I won't express myself on US deals. My colleagues are much more familiar for US deals than I am. But I would say we invest both in single asset company and also in platform companies. And then, what is important in our view is basically you want to have to build the company toward an exit. So that exit will usually be an M&A or it could be an IPO. But you want to be sure that the plan of the company is to develop its asset until it reaches a point where you can hope for an exit if the data are correct. So this has several implications. One is of timing. As Luke was mentioning earlier, we are working with funds with constrained timelines. So we want to be sure that it will not take 10 years in order to develop the drug. We have longer term funds than Luke was mentioning, but usually, we target to be an investor in a company like 4 to 6, 7 years. So in this time, you probably will spend a few million or 10 million euros for preclinical development, depending on the product, and then you will have to perform a clinical development. And what is very important for us is to be sure that you build a syndicate of investors that will be able to support this company all the way through the exit. So you want to be sure that you have a syndicate that can help the company raise, 20, 30, 40, 50, or even more during the lifetime of the company. And that's one of the most important points we think of when sending term sheet and when financing a company.
Okay, thank you.
Then,
yeah, go on. Okay, so I was going to Sophia to add into that. If there's any comment you'd like to make.
Sure, it's very similar to what Thibault mentioned. I think there's not a big differentiation between VC funds on this one. The way we look at things is that the way we look at a new investment is mainly along 3 parameters: the asset, the team, and then the financial equation. The asset, we talked about a number of these elements before. It's important that it addresses an unmet medical need, that it's innovative and differentiated, that the data is very robust, that there is an IP to support it. So all of that goes into the asset package. Then the team is very important to us as well. the team has to be the appropriate for this stage of the investment and the stage of the development of the compound. So it doesn't mean that each and every one of our investments has to have a seasoned NASDAQ experienced CEO, but an appropriate CEO for the particular stage, and then an appropriate team around the CEO. And then finally, the financial equation, and Thibault touched upon a number of these topics. So in addition to entry valuation, having an appropriate amount of capital to develop what we need to develop, whether it's a single asset or a platform and a pipeline of assets. And then the exit needs all to fit together. So in terms of exits, we obviously make our own calculations as to the potential valuation at exit of a particular investment, be it through a trade sale or through an IPO. And it all has to fit together before we issue a term sheet.
Thank you very much. We're coming up to almost just a few minutes left, so maybe we just shift gears a little bit and focus in on the who's participating in the audience, which is well, right now there's no one there now, but it will be pre-recorded. But if a potential entrepreneur was to come to you, what are you looking for? And we'll start that one with actually Luke. We'll start there. What do you want to see? What would you like to see? In other words, they meet the criteria which was kind of laid out. You know, the team is good, the science is good. What are you looking for then in these early discussions when you're trying to sift through all the matter?
So are you aiming that question at me? I just want to be clear.
Oh yes, to Luke.
Okay,
yeah, Luke first.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you for the question. So, given that most of our assets that we work with are preclinical or IND ready, that's really the range, right? So first and foremost, we look for candidate selection. Okay, so you have to have a candidate that is selected, that is ready for GMP manufacturing, to enable GLP talks after that, and then an IND package. Okay, so that's where our interest starts. Now, assuming that you have a candidate selected, it's great if you have some pilot talks. I mean, obviously non-GLP at that point. It's even better, of course, if you have some pharmacology, so some animal models. We like it when companies come to us and have whatever is the competitor that they want to outcompete or show against. It's great when they do their pharmacology and their PDX model or whatever model, that they use that compound as a comparator as well. Very often, the pharmacological models are run with a dose response, which is great, but very often it's done via vehicle or it's done via placebo alone. So that's the only control, which is a negative control. But it's always good also if you have a positive control. The other thing too is we like to see if it's a small molecule, or if it's something that's a bit more complicated than a small molecule. What is the manufacturing route? So the CMC, so the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls. That's a very important aspect of our due diligence as well. It's not just this compound seems safe, this compound flattens the growth of the tumor, but also can you manufacture this thing? Is this a 3-step synthesis, or is this a 25-step synthesis? And you need a bunch of CMOs. So the manufacturing side should not be. It definitely needs to be underlined here. And then of course IP is key, because once we get the phase 2 data, and we sell the asset, by the time the compound reaches the market or would reach the market, you still need to have about 10 years worth of IP life. If you've got 5 or 6 or 7 years, I think 7 years is kind of on the cusp for a pharma to buy it. So 10 years of IP life post product approval is definitely better, or more if you can. And for us, the compound, of course, needs to be unencumbered. And so if the asset has already been licensed for certain jurisdictions, that for us is essentially kills the deal. We need the asset to be completely unencumbered, because of course we put $15–20 million in the development of the compound. You generate phase 2 data, and then a pharma buyer comes in and says, yes, I really like your data, but you've already partnered jurisdiction A, B, and C. That, of course, is going to come out of the NPV, and that comes out of our upside, right? So unencumbered asset, candidate selection, CMC visibility, some pilot talks, right? And pharmacology that makes sense and is relevant to where we think we're going into the clinic with this. I would say, I'll stop there. I would say those 4 or 5
thank you.
criteria are really important.
Great. Corinne, would you like to add into that, if you don't mind, from your perspective?
Clearly, so we are not at all, I mean, I'm not going to say we don't have the same criteria as investors. I think our objective at the end are somehow a bit different. So the way we select the product when it's early asset, I have to be clear, we are not very often driven by like NPVs. It's so difficult to calculate those kind of return on investment. It's more whether our strong belief on the science, and after the what is nice, for example, let's split the answer. When we look at platform deals, it's because we really believe in a technology. We want to make a bet on a new mechanism of action, link with a technology, and then most of the time we would want to also in-license a preclinical asset, or even better, a clinical asset that is also coming from that platform. So with regard to that, IP is clearly important, because platform also bring a lot of strength with regard to the product that you would generate on those platforms. So IP on the platform is something we really look at closely. But we also look at proof of concept. So that's why I was saying, when there is already a clinical product which has been made with the platform, it's very important to us. And I would say after, it depends whether we would like to really get knowledge on that platform. So we will also split the work with the biotech. So we will be looking closely at the people, whether they have the resources, whether they have the good people, whether there is a good fit with the company. So with both companies. And I would say this is for the early asset deals. For the late stage asset deals, clearly a huge part will be the return on investment, the commercial piece that we will look at. So, and the strength, of course, of the data, the medical need, as I was saying previously, we always look whether the asset is going to add some value for the patient. That's really one of our main driver with regard to late stage asset. So I don't know whether this answers part of your question.
Yes, it does. That's perfect. Great. Thank you. Okay, we're just about out of time. What I'd like to do is just have a wrap up, some wrap up comments from the folks, and we'll start with Thibault.
Yes, so maybe as my colleagues formerly said, I mean, I'll wrap up in trying to summarize what investors are looking for. So of course, I mean, they are looking for assets that have a robust practical development, and by that, Luc insisted very well on the development and the choice of the candidate medics and the candidate drugs. and also on the CMC. And CMC is very important because, especially in oncology, you see more and more development where you have a phase 1 to a large trial, and then you can directly go to a registration trial. So ever if you stay as a standalone company or if you get acquired, you want to be sure that the CMC is really very well taken care of, because otherwise it will become a bottleneck in the development and in the value of your product. And then, I mean, I should also reinforce that the team is very important, because, I mean, as for any VC investment, we are very cautious on the team and the experience of people and the confidence we have in them to deliver what they promise to us.
Okay, thank you. Sophia?
Sure. So along the lines of what Thibault said, and maybe bouncing off my previous answer where I said that before making an investment, we look at 3 main areas, which is the asset, the team, and the financial equation. I would say that when we first encounter an opportunity, when we first meet with an entrepreneur or scientific founder or whatever, the focus is really the asset, because we think that the other 2, team and financial equation, could potentially be fixed down the line. So on the asset, I will repeat what a number of other panelists said, but unmet medical need, innovative and differentiated compounds, very good data, minimally preclinical for us, robust IP protection, and then finally the opportunity to do a smarter and faster clinical development plan with some patient selection based on biomarkers or genetic modification.
Well, thank you very much. I'll go to Kareem next, and I'm going to finish with, and then I'll Luke finish, because I want to say something before he talks. Okay, Kareem.
Okay, so as a wrap-up, I would say that for us in licensing in the innovative field of oncology, we are clearly mainly focusing on science and whether the mechanism of action and the modality can, fit with an identified medical need. This is, I would say, the basis. And there is also the aspect, as I was mentioning before, since we have that real particularity of being a global company with a super strong arm in China, we also look whether we can speed up the development of the product we in-license by including it in our portfolio, by having some clinical sites in China, which can also sometimes make a huge difference. The time when you arrive on the market is very important in oncology. So this is also, I would say, one of the second aspects we are looking at globally.
Well, thank you very much. Luke, if you could finish with, and you maybe tell the story about what happens when you have success, if you don't mind. In the
happy to, and I'm sure my co-panelists would have plenty of stories when they have success as well. So I can speak to that, but by no means should that topic be limited to me. So a few things. I do want to pick up on one point about biomarkers, which is crucial. In fact, I think Sophia made that point. Specifically, we look for 3 kinds of biomarkers. We want to see a biomarker of target engagement. If you hit the target, then you'll affect the pathway, you'll affect the biology. So a biomarker that you are affecting the biology once you hit the target. And even better, if we have a 3rd biomarker, which allows us to pre-select a patient population. So I do wanted to highlight that, because I think in this day and age, product development must be done with smart biomarkers. So I close that bracket. So we have a brand new fund that is $490 million US. We are just starting the investment period of the fund. And that feeds into the success story. So we sold 2 early stage oncology companies to Lilly. One, we were an investor in the company for 18 months, and one, we were an investor in the company for 9 months. Okay, now clearly they don't all work out that way. So these are examples. Okay. Now the one for 18 months is called ORCA, and as the name would tell, it was an aurora kinase A inhibitor. And what we showed with that inhibitor in the clinic is the safety side of the compound, because it didn't hit aurora kinase B. So we didn't see the stage 4 neutropenias. So we showed pharmacology, we showed safety, and there's a proprietary signature attached with this particular inhibitor, right? And patients with the signature showed signs of response. Patients without the signature did not. So Lilly came in and bought it right away, so they could spend a lot more money, a lot more resources developing the compound through a whole bunch of phase 2s. So that particular company was sold on the basis of clinical data in 18 months, and that's the advantage of working with the buyer from day one, because those specs were devised, were put together by conversations early on with Lilly. Okay, the second example is Acanthus, which we just sold, in fact, to Lilly, and this was a 9-month hold. We were going to develop this IDH1, mutated IDH1 inhibitor for brain cancer, and out came new data with regards to AML. And the data were so convincing that Lilly bought it as the compound was in fact an IND filing. Okay, and now the compound will be developed for AML. So Lilly bought ORCA for $600 million, and they bought for upfront and milestones, of course, not one payment, and they bought Acanthus for $430 million, again in upfront and milestones. So those two are very good examples, and I wish they all were like that, but it underlines essentially the appetite by pharma to buy aggressively in oncology.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank, we're probably going way over time, but I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Luc, Karine, Thibault, and Sophia for really participating in a very great discussion. So thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person.